Hey everybody, it's You Had to Ask, where I answer your questions, and the first question this week comes from my buddy Firefly4F4, and he asks, what are the 3 worst films you have seen and what made them so damn awful? My stock answer to what the worst film I've ever seen is for the last 15 years has been Batman and Robin. Batman and Robin was the shittiest movie I had ever seen. The first time I saw it in the theater when I was 17 years old, and it's still the first movie that pops into my mind when people say, what's the worst movie you've ever seen? Oh, fucking Batman and Robin. I would also say Star Wars Episode 2. At least not just in terms of how terrible it is, but also in terms of what a huge disappointment it is. Because even though Episode 1 of Star Wars was not up to expectations by any means, not that any movie really could have been, but it was just so sour and boring and lifeless and flat and just nothing that you would ever have wanted it to be. It was such a huge disappointment, and it was stupid. It was so irredeemably stupid in parts, like the Yoda lightsaber duel. I mean, that's something that, like, if it was possible for filmmakers to be indicted for cinematic crimes, that would be a long prison sentence for George Lucas, just for that fucking Yoda lightsaber scene. Just one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in a movie. Next question from GS Kowal. Steve, who makes better movies, Quentin Tarantino or Coen brothers? Oh, damn. What a great question. And what an impossible question to answer. I don't know. If you put a gun to my head, I guess I would say Tarantino, just because I think his films have meant more to me or have been more of an influence on me as a writer, just because his dialogue is just so crackling. But at the same time, the Coen brothers write fantastic dialogue too. I mean, it's a really tough choice to make between those two, because even though their styles are so different and their senses of humor are so different and their films that they have made are so different from each other, they're both so incredibly good, and they're both, you can make an argument, because they're both roughly from the same generation of filmmaker, and you can make an argument for both of being the top of their class, as it were. I mean, my God, has there been a better film in the last 10 or 15 years than No Country for Old Men, at least an American film? I mean, I really don't think so. There's a few contenders, but I mean, goddamn, that's a great movie. And then, of course, Tarantino has, I mean, just go down the list, Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, which is underrated and is a great movie. Death Proof, again, underrated and a great movie, just such a fun, blackly funny movie. Inglourious Bastards, great fucking movie. Both volumes of Kill Bill I've loved. I mean, he's just an amazing filmmaker and an amazing stylist, and one of the few filmmakers that marries this really arresting, over-the-top visual style with an ability to write amazing scripts. He's just a genius. And then you can say the same thing about the Coens. It's really tough to pick. If you put a gun to my head, I'll say Tarantino. Next from Avery Dawes, how do you view the healthcare system in the United States, and do you think opposition to a universal healthcare system similar to that in Canada or France, for example, is justified? I agree with my fellow Americans who say that we here in the United States have the best healthcare system in the world, but the problem I have with that is they always leave off a very important additional clause to that sentence, which is, if you can afford it. We have a great infrastructure, we have incredible equipment, we have brilliant doctors, we have brilliant research universities constantly working on breakthroughs. We have an amazing healthcare system here. The problem is it's incredibly expensive and it's not available to everybody. And if you do find yourself in an acute situation, a life or death situation where you have to take advantage of this amazing healthcare system, you can find yourself financially ruined. And that's why I'm completely in favor of a universal healthcare system, of a single payer system where the government covers everybody and we all subsidize it through our taxes. I think that's the way to go. I think that's the way we're going to go eventually. I do wish we had gotten a little closer to that goal with the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, as I guess now everybody calls it. That was a step in the right direction, but I think it was only a step. I wish it had been a little bit, at least a bigger step. God is Dead and Buried asks, who is your favorite YouTube atheist besides yourself? You are obviously the best atheist YouTuber. Well, thank you, God is Buried. And actually, I could have cut that parenthetical out, but I wanted to leave the praise in. I know. It's childish and selfish and egotistical. But hi, have we met? My favorite YouTube atheist, I really love The Thinking Atheist. He was an inspiration for me when I first started doing this, and he still is. I think he does amazing work. I love Dark Matter 2525. I think he's insanely talented, and he's one of those guys, like, if I see he's uploaded a new video, I watch it immediately. Coughlin. I love Coughlin. Coughlin was a guy who, again, was someone that I watched before I started producing videos and thought, man, this guy's good. I hope if I do this, I can be as good as this guy. He has a great voice, both in terms of his actual voice and in terms of what he says. And we don't agree on everything, but I admire him greatly. And actually, I have to say, Coughlin, when I saw that Coughlin had subscribed to my channel, and he leaves comments occasionally, and that's always like a little thrill for me, you know. That's, I don't know, I just like, it's like a little fanboyish thrill. Like, oh, Coughlin watched this video, Coughlin left a comment. It's really cool. Hi, Coughlin. The Great Old Ones. As an English major, you presumably took at least one creative writing class, right? Is it wrong to mock the people in your creative writing classes for being genuinely awful, or is it off limits because they are there to learn? I think it should be off limits during the class. But after class, fuck, mock the shit out of them. I used to mock people in my creative writing classes. I think I wound up taking a total of 3 creative writing classes in the various years I was in college, and they were some of the best classes I ever took. I loved those classes, and they helped me as a writer more than I thought they would. And that's a really egotistical thing to say, isn't it? They helped me a lot more than I thought they would. I wasn't as great as I thought I was. But yeah, they were great classes. And yeah, there were some really, really shitty writers. I never was in a class where I was the worst writer in the class, which was a relief. But yeah, I think outside of class, once class is over, when you're talking to friends, or, I mean, I think it's fine to mock people, mock the shit out of people, even mock them to their face, say, dude, you're a shit writer. But within the context of the class, I think the purpose of the class is to be constructive and to be helpful and to offer opinions that are designed to help your fellow students become better writers. I don't think the mockery and the degradation and the joking and the, you know, is appropriate for during class. But after class, oh, fuck yes. God, yes. I think it's totally cool. Mock the shit out of the shitty writers in your creative writing class. It's one of the joys of taking the class. If you're not going to take advantage of the opportunity to mock shitty writers, why take the fucking creative writing class? Because you want to be a better writer? Bassbait asks, if you could choose between punching John Wilkes Booth in the face or kicking all of the more notorious 9/11 truthers in the balls, which would you choose? Keep in mind that neither would change history. As much as I would love to punch John Wilkes Booth in the face, because God, what an asshole, I think I would go with kicking the 9/11 truthers in the balls, because that's just, there's just more to do. There's just way more of them. There's only one John Wilkes Booth. You only get one shot at that. And there are so many truthers in the world. I mean, and it would just give me such selfish pleasure. Just, I mean, God, kicking Dylan Avery in the fucking balls would be enough of a joy in and of itself. Kicking fucking Jason Burmis in the balls would just be, that'd be a euphoric experience. That would be as close as an atheist like me could probably get to a religious experience. To kick the guys who made loose change in the fucking balls. And then they're just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many truthers all around the world doing so much stupid shit, doing so much damage to critical thinking, and feeding the delusions of so many deluded people all over the world. It would just be so much fun to go around kicking all those guys and girls in the balls. It would be awesome. And yeah, it would be the truthers. It would definitely be the truthers. I don't even have to think about it. I mean, yeah, it would be cool to time travel back to the 1860s to punch John Wilkes Booth. I mean, that might be a more fun trip, but kicking the truthers in the balls would be awesome. And kicking the lady truthers in the balls would be an interesting challenge, because I don't know if you know much about female anatomy, but their balls are actually inside of them. So you really have to rear back, and that's got to be a fucking mule kick to really hit the balls. And plus, you know, there you go, good exercise too, and who doesn't need that? X-Tracker YT, have you seen Herzog's take on Abel Ferrara's movie Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans? If you have, what did you think of the subjective camera shots that Herzog did himself of the surviving gator and the iguanas? I found them both hilarious and eerie. Yeah, me too. I loved the iguana stuff. I love, there's even that shot where Nicolas Cage's character says to Val Kilmer, like, well, you know, what's that fucking iguana doing there? And Kilmer's like, what iguana? And he actually hits it, like, this fucking iguana. And Kilmer can't see the iguana. I like those shots. I like the weirdness of that. I loved that movie. I found that movie so funny, and I really liked the original as well. I liked Abel Ferrara's original Bad Lieutenant with Harvey Keitel. I think that's a great movie. But a very different movie from Herzog's Bad Lieutenant. Herzog's Bad Lieutenant is pretty much a really twisted, surreal comedy that takes full advantage of Nicolas Cage's, shall we say, gifts as an actor. Yeah, just a great movie. Herzog in general, I mentioned last week, Herzog is one of my very favorite filmmakers of everybody ever. And Cephas Atheos asks, my question, what are your all-time favorite films outside the Marvel DC oeuvre? Or maybe mention your top few Keaton, Chaplin, Herzog, etc. films, or your favorite 5 comedy, drama, action, etc. films. You know, Cephas, you really need to fucking pick one, dude. My favorite film ever of all time of anything is Buster Keaton's Sherlock Jr. And there's actually a video I made about that on my channel if you search for the Brilliance of Buster, Sherlock Jr. It's one of the few videos that I've made where I don't appear on camera at all. Buster Keaton, one of the few subjects where I will actually rein in my rampant, wild egotism and choose to show you clips from Keaton films instead of this. Sherlock Jr. is my favorite film. And my favorite Chaplin film, City Lights. My favorite Herzog film, probably his remake of Nosferatu. I love that, and that's a favorite of me and my wife. We watch it all the time, especially this time of year, close to Halloween. We even had music from Herzog's Nosferatu at our wedding. It's just, both of us are just mad about that movie. Other favorite filmmakers, I love Stanley Kubrick. I think someone else has left comments about Stanley Kubrick in the comments to these videos, and I think Kubrick is a genius. Kubrick was probably the first filmmaker that really struck me as being a great filmmaker, and with him, I mean, 2001, Paths of Glory is another great Kubrick film. I just watched The Shining again last week, and I mean, yeah, I don't think Kubrick ever made a bad film, and he was absolutely a genius, and maybe the most technically perfect filmmaker that ever worked anywhere. Hey, that was the last question. Let's do a shout out. The shout out this week goes to Paul Chartley, a.k.a. the Holyghost Busters. And his series that he does that he is most known for is literally Genesis. That's where he reads literally from the book of Genesis. He reads the original King James text, and then he adds his own sarcastic commentary and annotations to it. And if you're into that sort of thing, it's a really funny, really informative, really enjoyable series. And I just saw today he wrote a book. He published a book with his annotated version of the book of Genesis. So check out his channel, check out Paul Chartley, check out the Literally Genesis series, and fuck, buy the dude's book. Help a brother out. Buy the book. That's it for this week. I'll be back doing this again next week, answering more of your questions. If you have a question that you want me to answer on next week's edition of You Had to Ask, you have to ask. Leave a comment on this video, ask me the question, and if I don't secretly hate you, I will answer the question. Any subject, anything goes. Ask me anything. Just don't ask me anything really about math, because I suck at math. I would just have to use a calculator to answer the question, and that would defeat the whole purpose of the series, because I wouldn't really be telling you what I know. I would be cheating, and I will not have the integrity of this YouTube series compromised for anything. So, other than math, ask me anything you want, and I'll see you next week.